Single dad's incredible sacrifice for college student reveals her hidden millionaire identity. Jack woke up before dawn, the sun casting long shadows across the sun-baked sidewalks of their small Ohio town. His weary eyes mirrored the weight of his sacrifices, 3 jobs and countless sleepless nights for one goal, to give his daughter, Emily, a chance at a brighter future. It was a promise made in the echo of his late wife's laughter, one that now seemed like a distant memory. He gathered his strength, determined to give Emily every opportunity. The smell of fresh-cut grass mingled with his anxiety as he prepared for another long day. He poured his love into physical labor at the roofing company, waiting tables at the diner, and delivering groceries. Every hour spent working felt like a brick laid in the foundation of their dreams, yet each evening he returned home, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss in the air. Emily, stuck between her rigorous studies and a secret that gnawed at her conscience, dug deeper into her research on bioluminescent organisms in the lab. It was her refuge, where she could lose herself in the marvels of science. But unbeknownst to Jack, she carried a weight greater than her textbooks, the revelation of her mother's hidden fortune, a shadow lurking in the backdrop of their grief. How could she reveal the truth that could fix every creak in their humble house? The weight of her mother's legacy tightened around her chest as she faced a moral dilemma that entwined with her father's dedication. Jack beamed with pride as she shared her breakthrough with him, blissfully unaware of the storm raging in Emily's heart. The invitation to present at a prestigious academic conference had elevated her status overnight, yet it also amplified the dread mixing with her elation. How could she pursue her dreams when her loyalties were being asked to stretch beyond their modest life? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days later, a distant relative's twisted voice crackled through her phone, revealing a menace she never anticipated. A greedy stranger threatening to expose their family's hidden past meant he believed the fortune was rightfully his. Emily paced her room, skin crawling with the threat that loomed closer every day. She could picture her father's dismay if he learned the truth, a gold brick that would weigh down their simple life. How could their modest bond survive if she exposed this familial deception? Tension crackled in the air like static electricity as she recalled their evenings spent in the backyard, Jack sharing fading stories of her mother, laughter mingled with lingering sorrow. But Emily felt time closing in, her recognition in academia made them a target. Would she risk the fragile love they shared by confronting Jack with the truth? Caught in the relentless spiral of uncertainty, Emily's heart raced in despair as she grappled with her impending decision. Their lives, once defined by hard work and shared dreams, now danced precariously on the edge of revelation and betrayal. The stakes had never been higher, and she couldn't evade the truth forever. What will she choose when the love of a father weighs against the gilded legacy of her mother? Time would tell, but the clock was ticking, and the weight of the world was gathered tightly in her hands, leaving no room for mistakes. Dawn broke with an unsettling hush, a stark reminder that the dichotomy of Emily's life had become unbearable. Shadows danced across her room as she sat at her cluttered desk, textbooks and research papers piled high. The award letter for the conference lay open, black ink on crisp white paper like a beacon of success. But victory felt hollow against the dark undercurrents of her revelation. Jack's smile echoed in her memory, an image that solidified her resolve but also deepened her turmoil. He had devoted himself to her education based on a promise built from sacrifice. How could she shatter his world when he had fought so hard for her? The thought of seeing disbelief in his eyes solidified the tension coiling within her chest. But exposure to the looming danger she faced began to harden her mind. The threat from her relative wasn't just a footnote, it was a catalyst for action. She couldn't let betrayal dictate her narrative. Facing a lush green landscape outside, Emily felt the grip of the natural world pulling at her, reminding her of the intricate ecosystems she studied. The biomolecular relationships she researched mirrored her own fractured existence, complex and interdependent. Her focus shifted, and she began planning. If she had the tenacity to dissect a genetic sequence, couldn't she confront the intricacies of her own predicament? The idea seeded in her mind the decision to keep her mother's wealth hidden or to leverage it for her and Jack's future weighed heavily as she envisioned multiple paths. Confronting the relative was inevitable. She'd have to unearth any potential leverage to protect their secret. Gathering documents, she noticed a dust-covered box in the corner of her room. Curiosity piqued, she approached it, her heartbeat quickening. What if it contained secrets that could help her navigate this treachery? As she opened it, dust motes swirled into the sunlight, revealing old letters, family photos, and finally, hidden financial documents detailing her mother's investments. Each document unveiled layers of her mother's world she had never known. It was dizzying. Each signature connected Emily to possible wealth that could redefine their lives but would also tie them to a web of legacy, a web threaded with lies and betrayals. Guilt knotted in her stomach, prompting an internal battle between gratitude for her mother's provision and resentment for the deception involved. Added to her dilemma was a sudden rush of clarity about her own identity. What if this hidden wealth was the key to a life not weighed down by constant worry? The thought lingered as she steeled herself for what her next move would be. She could become an advocate for her mother's legacy or risk their life together in the shadows of greed. Days turned into frantic nights where adrenaline fueled her studies and planning, but a storm of anxiety brewed. Time was a luxury she couldn't afford. Thoughts of Jack haunted her, every sacrifice he made pulsed through her as she revised her strategy. All the while, the borrowed thrill of running the risk to build a future coursed through her veins. The moment approached for her to confront both her relative and her father with the truth she carefully guarded. Emily's duality tore at her resolve, young scientist on the cusp of success versus daughter ensnared in a moral quagmire. The clock ticked down. Emotional turbulence blurred the lines of right and wrong. Were they ready to face the truth together, or would the foundation of their bond fracture under explosive revelations? As she prepared, a sudden realization shot through her. Her academic achievements opened doors that had been quiet, offering her a glimpse into her true potential. But would her next steps tear her father and her dreams apart? The storm was on the horizon, and she felt its pull. Soon, she would have to decide, would she hold on to her mother's legacy, or would she embrace the simplicity of their shared struggle? The moment for confrontation was looming closer, and with it came a revelation that could redefine everything. They knew about each other. What awaited her would change the course of their lives forever. The sun hung in a hesitant sky, casting long shadows that danced ominously through the narrow hallways of Emily's consciousness. Her studies had brought her to the precipice of a defining moment, one that demanded not just intellect but the fierce courage to confront what lay ahead. Armed with the documents that revealed her mother's hidden wealth, she now had the leverage to shape her own narrative. But hidden riches came with burdens, and she felt the weight of them pressing against her resolve. Each letter she had unearthed seemed to whisper secrets of a past Emily had been oblivious to. The revelations made her heart race. Wealth had not been a mere coincidence, it was a manifestation of choices made long before she existed, a borrowed legacy tied with threads of deception. Could she reconcile her ambition with the pragmatism required to move forward, knowing the source of her potential future was laced with moral ambiguity? Focused and driven, she set aside the emotional turmoil, narrowing her perspective to the task at hand. Confronting her relative was no longer a matter of if but when. Determination surged as she outlined her approach in meticulous detail, like a scientist designing an experiment to tackle a complex problem. If her life thus far had been a hypothesis born from certainty and sacrifice, now she had to venture into uncertain territory where betrayal loomed large. Yet, the thought of Jack haunted her, a specter of their shared experiences that clashed with the path she was about to tread. She weighed the consequences of her secret with the genuine bond they had created. Would unveiling her mother's legacy tarnish the purity of the aspirations they built together? Emily sought clarity within the chaos, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability amidst her frantic preparations. That evening, she found herself staring at their shared study space, a place that vibrated with the energy of late-night brainstorming sessions and poignant discussions. Jack's laughter echoing within these walls made her confront the emotional complexity of their relationship. He had sacrificed so much for her, driven by a belief in her potential. What would his reaction be if she unveiled the truth? Would it shatter the pillars they had constructed together? Approaching the threshold of their intertwined lives, Emily's thoughts turned inward. She envisioned a future where she could offer him safety and stability, where they could transcend the struggle that had defined them for so long. But could she present that future truthfully, stripped of the deceptions that had created it? The palpable fear of losing him weighed against the possibility of security, igniting a fierce internal conflict. The turning point arrived on a brisk evening. She had finally summoned enough courage to invite Jack over under the guise of a study session. Emily meticulously organized the scattered documents on her desk, each piece a testament to not only the wealth she possessed but also the latent risks associated with revealing that wealth. She took a deep breath and let the silence wash over her, imbuing her with the clarity she desperately needed. With Jack about to arrive any minute, she felt an electric pulse of anticipation mixed with dread. Would he stand by her as she laid bare this newfound truth, or would the shock push him away, fracturing the bond they had nurtured so carefully? She could almost hear the ticking clock in the background, reminding her that the moment of reckoning was here. The sound of the door creaking open jolted her thoughts into reality as Jack stepped inside, momentarily disarming her with that infectious smile. His carefree demeanor felt like a stark contrast to the heaviness of the secret she was about to reveal. For a fleeting second, she hesitated, competing emotions swirling within her, but the commitment to the truth prevailed that it was time to confront the complexity of their relationship and the implications of her hidden wealth. The moment of honesty loomed, offering a fork in the road of their journey together. Would she emerge stronger, or would this revelation sow the seeds of doubt in the land they had cultivated? As Jack settled into his seat, her heart raced, and she knew the course of their lives was about to shift irrevocably. "Jack, there is something I need to tell you," Emily began, the weight of her secret resting heavily on her shoulders, ready to spill forth and change everything. Emily's voice trembled as she began to lay out the intricacies of her discovery. Every word felt monumental, echoing in the hollow corners of her doubts. She stared into Jack's eyes, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern the deeper she ventured into the narrative of family betrayal and unearthly riches. The gravity of what she was revealing hung between them like an invisible thread, pulling tighter with each revelation. "And my mother's wealth is, well, it was hidden away, most of it in trust funds I never knew existed." As she spoke, she registered Jack's reactions, his brows furrowing, a storm of questions swirling behind his calm facade. Would he comprehend the connection between her past, their present, and the uncertain future? "But why didn't you ever mention any of this before? Emily, you've been hustling to make everything happen on your own. You've carried so much," he asked, his voice steady but edged with confusion. She realized Jack had perceived her struggle as pure determination, unaware of the complexity lurking beneath the surface. The acknowledgement illuminated a distinct chasm between them, one that had subtly formed as she nurtured her secrets. "I never wanted this to define me," she replied, the intensity of her conviction sharpening. "I thought I could be independent and build something real, something we both worked for." But the weight of the materials piled on her desk made that ideal feel brittle, frail under the truths she had just uttered. Jack's gaze softened, yet she could see the uncertainty in his eyes, a flicker of doubt about the authenticity of their connection now that the veil was lifted. "But what does this mean for us? For your plans?" he asked, and it felt like a punch to the gut. He had every right to question, yet witnessing the possibility of losing him awakened an urgency within her. "I don't want it to change anything, Jack. We've fought for our place together." She leaned forward, willing him to understand the raw essentials consuming her. Jack shifted, his mind racing, contemplating not just her truth, but his role in a future entangled with newfound wealth. As he processed her words, Emily felt a surge of fear entailing her next steps. Questions unspooled like yarn. What would they do with the money? Should she even accept it? 1,000 moral dilemmas threatened to unravel her newly forged identity. The fear of possibility clashed with the yearning for stability and the life they envisioned together. I want to protect what we have. I hoped your belief in me would be enough, that we could become better together without the shadows of my past haunting us, she admitted, voice quaking with raw emotion. The sacred ladder they had climbed suddenly seemed built on uneven rungs. She realized that her pursuit of independence and truth now jeopardized their bond. His fingers drummed against the edge of the table, an unconscious gesture that spoke of his grappling thoughts. Emily, it's not just about wealth. It's about trust. Can this even be an honest foundation? The implication lingered heavily, forcing her to confront not only her secret but the trajectory of their shared ambitions. She watched as Jack wrestled with his own feelings, the distance between them feeling palpable. It struck her, was she truly ready to unravel the intricacies of her hidden identity in pursuit of freedom? The fear of uncertainty was one thing, but the fear of losing Jack felt insurmountable. In that charged silence, the ticking clock in her mind began to stutter. Each tick resonated with potential paths diverging endlessly before her. She had a choice to cling to the comfort of deception or embrace a truth that could rebuild or fracture their lives forever. Jack, she said, summoning her resolve, what if we could channel this together? Turn it into a fresh start. We can navigate this as a team. Uncertainty still hung heavily around her, and though she extended her hand toward him, the rift in understanding swirled ominously. I just hope that's possible, he murmured, finding her gaze but struggling to break through the tension binding them. She felt the burden of his hesitation and knew that no matter their next steps, the stakes had escalated, but was it too late for them? Emily's heart raced not just for the promises of wealth, but also for the fragile pact of trust on which their dreams lay. What would they decide as the sun began to sink beyond the horizon, casting long shadows over their dreams? Together then, she stated, though there was a crack in her confidence. As they sat in the weight of their unspoken thoughts, she felt like the ground was shifting beneath her. Where would this revelation lead them next? Jack's response could redefine everything, but the uncertainty had only just begun. Emily sat in the oppressive silence, the sunlight dwindling as the day melted into twilight. The shadows in her mind mirrored the fading light, each thought a specter of doubt that whispered secrets of inadequacy. Jack's uncertainty loomed larger, suffocating her desire to forge a path forward. She wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture both protective and revealing. The armor of independence she had built over the years now felt as fragile as glass. In a world that ranked success by the zeros on a bank statement, Emily had made peace with her modest life. To seek help would be to acknowledge that her journey was anything but singular, an admission she had feared would unravel her sense of self. She leaned back in her chair, pulling her thoughts together like strands of a frayed rope. If Jack's love had buoyed her above the tides of her past, now the waves threatened to sweep them both away. Emily, Jack broke the silence, his voice a lifeline amidst the storm. If this wealth was hidden away, then why now? What made you decide to uncover it? The question was pointed, cleaving through her defenses. She hesitated, the honesty she had offered moments ago closing up like an oyster retreating into its shell. Because, Jack, she finally said, I realized I can't keep pretending. I can't ignore what I'm entitled to, yet it scares me. Her voice fell to a whisper, layered with implications. What if accepting it means losing you? He rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture she recognized well, thinking deeply. This isn't just about money for you, is it? You've built your identity on struggle and independence. How do you reconcile that with this revelation? A sharp intake of breath ignited a determined fire within her. The weight of identity was heavy, but it was also a chance for transformation. I've always been afraid of becoming someone else or letting this kind of wealth define me. But maybe it doesn't have to replace who I am. Perhaps I can use it, to create something meaningful that reflects not just my past but our future. Jack's delight mingled with skepticism, and Emily sensed the nuanced balance they were treading. That's an admirable goal, but what if it distorts your original dreams? The things we wanted to build from the ground up. It doesn't have to shatter my dreams, Jack. I was trapped by my need for independence. I thought I had to do this alone. But what if relying on one another can help us write new dreams? New foundations? The sincerity in her voice rang like a resolute bell, striking the air with conviction. Jack leaned forward, capturing her gaze. But what if we fail? Then we learn. A soft confidence bolstered her spirit. It's time I recognize that I don't have to go through this alone, Jack. That trusting us can become the anchor that steadies me. I just need to know that you're with me. For a long moment, Jack searched her eyes, and then something shifted. In that vulnerable space between hopes and fears, he nodded, albeit slowly. Together then, he repeated, this time with a weight that solidified their commitment. As they exchanged a glimmer of mutual understanding, Emily felt a swell of hope. The gears had begun to turn. The fear that had paralyzed her was giving way to agency and possibility. She could harness her potential in this unwritten chapter. But in this newfound optimism, another whisper intruded. Was embracing her past worth the upheaval it might unleash? Would the trust she hoped to build withstand the coming revelations? Determined to confront the uncertainty head-on, Emily took a deep breath. Let us map it out, she said, clarity sharpening her voice. Our next steps, our strategy. Little did they know, as her plans began to shape, another layer of the past lurked just beneath the surface. One that had the power to fracture their devoted partnership before it really began. What secrets were still waiting to be unearthed? The following morning sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the scattered notes and papers sprawled across Emily's dining table. Steeling herself, she pulled out a fresh notepad, a blank slate eager for her ambitions. The chaos of yesterday's discussions with Jack lingered in her mind, a bittersweet reminder that every bold step forward came with its own set of shadows. Her pen hesitated against the paper, a stark contrast to the resolve she felt within. Emily had always been a planner, meticulously mapping out every decision as if her life depended on it. Yet as she doodled her goals, a flicker of self-doubt twisted in her gut. The fear of failure loomed larger than ever, casting doubt on her recent intentions of melding her newfound wealth with her dreams. What if financing her plans altered her identity? What if it compromised her values? With a deep breath, she pushed the doubts aside and began jotting down her objectives, one by one. A community project to empower young women with financial literacy, a mentorship program for budding entrepreneurs. The foundations she yearned to establish were now vivid in her mind. This was her way of reclaiming her narrative, of threading her past into a future she wanted to shape rather than react to. Each goal she penned brought a renewed sense of determination, grounding her in the belief that she could steer her own ship. But as the ink dried, Emily's phone chimed an unexpected message from an unknown number. Curiosity sparked as she opened it, revealing a cryptic note, I know what you found. You need to be careful. Her heart raced, every beat unsettling her composure. Who sent this? What exactly did they know? The weight of her recent revelations began to settle heavily on her shoulders. What if her past was more entangled than she had anticipated? Jack wandered into the room, his typical morning cheer dimmed by an echo of their conversation from the previous night. His brows knitted together as he caught sight of her pallor. You okay? He asked, concern etched into his features. Just a message, Emily replied, struggling to mask her anxiety. But the walls felt thin, the air thick with her hidden turmoil. She weighed the pros and cons of sharing this cryptic warning but ultimately held it in, not wanting to dampen their fragile optimism. Instead, she focused on the tangible, laying out her vision for their plans. Let us start with the community project. I want to make sure we get this right. The passion in her voice ignited a flicker of excitement in Jack's eyes. Together, they began crafting a step-by-step strategy, diving into resource lists, potential collaborators, and budgeting. As they immersed themselves in discussions, the tension from earlier started to dissipate, each potential step igniting more enthusiasm than fear. But beneath her newfound exhilaration, Emily couldn't shake the pervasive feeling of unease triggered by the anonymous message. Who was monitoring her pursuits, and what did they want? More than ever, she realized that navigating her dreams required vigilance within and outside herself. After hours of strategizing, Jack took a moment to reflect. You know, this is huge for us. I think we can really make a difference." There was admiration in his tone, a belief in their power to consult the future rather than be haunted by the past. "Yeah, we will," she affirmed, her voice steadier this time, masking the racing thoughts that flared in her mind. The precarious balance of their hope and the looming threat whispered in her head, urging her to confront whatever shadow lay ahead. As night descended over the city, Emily mulled over her next steps, her heart pulsating with determination. This was just the beginning of her journey, a catalyst for change. But every moment of clarity opened the door to the unknown. What would she need to face to protect her vision? Emboldened yet unsettled, she resolved to dig deeper, driven to uncover the truth behind the message. But would the revelations bolster her plans or threaten to unravel everything she'd just begun to build? The morning brought an unexpected clarity, washing over Emily like a refreshing breeze. The message still lurked in the corner of her mind, but she was determined not to let it sidetrack her from her ambitions. The thrill of possibility replaced the weight of fear, igniting a fire within her. This was her chance to redefine what success meant for her, not only financially but personally. After finishing a cup of coffee, she rededicated herself to the planning she had started with Jack. The first step was to structure her community project around the financial literacy workshops. It was time to dive deep into research, to explore existing models and step outside her comfort zone. Potential pitfalls awaited, but Emily was ready to confront them head-on. Each facet of preparation infused her with confidence, and the act of creation filled her with purpose. While poring over notes, she felt a surge of her past experiences battling against the allure of fear. The self-doubt that had threatened to sideline her ambitions was now a motivator, reminding her of the battles she had faced before. She recalled her college years, the sacrifices she had made, and the complacency she had left behind. The moment she had shed those limiting beliefs was her true awakening. Emily had transformed from someone merely surviving her circumstances to a force capable of shaping her destiny. As her ideas began to crystallize into actionable tasks, she reached out to former colleagues, other entrepreneurs, and community leaders. A flurry of messages and calls revitalized her network. Connections that had laid dormant began to bloom, spurring conversations infused with energy and a shared vision. Their enthusiasm reinforced her resolve. Each professional exchange tightened the tapestry of her project, weaving diverse threads into a cohesive whole. Yet, in those moments of progress, the mysterious message hovered, and an unsettling thought filled her mind: who was watching? Was her past truly behind her? As she tapped her pen against the notepad, the rhythm of her heart quickened. If someone knew about her discoveries, it might mean more than mere concern. There could be threats lurking. The sudden intensity of trepidation gripped her. In an effort to reclaim control, she made a plan to investigate the source of the warning herself. Researching online made her pulse race with each click. Emily allowed herself to dive into the digital undercurrents of her past, seeking to root out the shadows that clung to her. Jack, noticing her slightly distracted demeanor, pulled her back to the present. "Hey, let's brainstorm some names for the workshops. We could use something catchy to draw people in." His excitement was contagious, sparking an idea within her. "Maybe we should target our language towards empowerment, something inviting that speaks to potential rather than fear," Emily proposed, her mind racing with concepts. "Something like Empower Hour." Jack chuckled, but the sense of collaboration churned a deeper realization within her. This partnership wasn't just about business, it was about building a legacy that spoke to an unyielding future, one crafted with purpose and awareness. With the workshop idea solidified, her focus expanded, encompassing the potential socio-economic impacts of what they could achieve. Each new prospect grounded her further, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that looming threats, unseen obstacles waited just beyond her line of sight. Later that night, while searching through her emails for contacts in her network, she stumbled upon something that made her blood run cold: an email from a familiar name with a subject line she had tried to forget. Suddenly, the pursuit of her dreams intersected with the shadows of her past in a way she'd never anticipated. Was uncovering her history vital for empowerment, or would it tear down everything she was trying to build? With a shiver of resolve, Emily knew she needed to face her fears and the specter of her past before advancing any further. The question was, would confronting her history prove liberating or destructive? As she opened the email, her heart raced. What transgressions had she buried, and would they finally come to light at the most critical juncture of her life? Emily's fingers trembled as she opened the email, the familiar name leaping off the screen like a specter that refused to be ignored. Memories flooded her, whispers of a time filled with choices driven by desperation rather than dreams. Names, incidents, and decisions she had tried to leave behind now threatened to intertwine with her present. Would she succumb to those ghosts, or could she wrestle control back from the past? The email contained just a few lines, but each one felt heavy with implication. A reminder of debts unpaid, choices unmade, and connections severed. Emily, it began, we need to talk about what you left behind. The words twisted in her stomach like a coiling serpent. Confronted with this raw reminder, she couldn't escape the gnawing thought that perhaps her ambition had come too swiftly, that she wasn't as free as she had imagined. As the panic clawed at her mind, a counter-thread of determination began to weave through the fear. This email could portray a reflection of herself she thought she had discarded. It posed the ultimate test. Would she once again allow outside forces to define her narrative? No. She could confront whatever awaited her. Her vision for the workshops wouldn't be built on fear but on the foundation of undisputed truth. Hers, restructuring her thoughts, Emily took a deep breath. Who better to face her past than the resilient woman she had become? She took out her journal, the pages filled with dreams and strategies, and wrote down the main points the email hinted at. She needed to prepare for the conversation. Not only had her past molded her, but resolving it could ultimately solidify the future she envisioned. With a sharp pencil, she listed key questions she needed answered and insight she craved. What did she owe? What parts of her history still held power over her decisions? Over the next few days, she dedicated herself to research and reassessment. She meticulously mapped out the timing and scope of her workshops while mentally preparing for the upcoming confrontation. Each new workshop prospect, each envisioned participant, felt like a step away from the tangled web her past had woven. Yet she could not shake off that pressing weight, the feeling that shadows were inching closer. Her calls to the network buzzed with potential and revivified old friendships, but beneath the surface thrummed an unsettling tension. Jack's enthusiasm was a balm against uncertainty, but Emily's heart wavered, haunted by the idea of what might seep from the addressed envelope and unravel her careful plans. During one brainstorming session with Jack, the conversation turned to the significance of trust and financial literacy, how openness fosters empowerment. A realization flourished within her: the integrity of her journey wasn't merely about economic knowledge, it involved transparency with her own story. Sharing her past could empower others facing their battles. Every imperfection is a stepping stone, she said to Jack, her voice steadier than she felt. I need to embrace my history, not hide from it. Their workshop plans began to incorporate elements of personal stories, a canvas for vulnerability embracing learning. On the day of the conference call, with the sender of the email looming ever closer, Emily felt a mix of anticipation and dread. The truth would emerge, she would wrestle with it, and perhaps emerge stronger. What lay ahead would influence not only her reputation but also the future of her workshops. In this liminal space, she prepared herself to embrace both personal and professional growth, determined that her past would serve as an invaluable lesson. The decision to engage with her reality would define her next steps. As the clock ticked down toward the call, the doorbell rang, echoing through her home. Who could it be? A thought collided with her resolve. What if this was an unexpected visitor from her past, someone who knew more than she was prepared to confront? Emily hesitated at the front door, her heart racing and her palms slick with perspiration. The doorbell had shattered her mental preparation, a jarring reminder that the past rarely stayed hidden for long. The echo of that email loomed in her mind as she approached the door, oscillating between curiosity and dread. Did this visitor carry the specters of her old life, or was it simply a figment of her anxiety? Taking a deep breath, she opened the door to reveal a familiar face. It was her younger brother, Ryan, looking a year older but still wearing the familiar expression of wide-eyed admiration mixed with naivety. Emily's initial panic melted away, replaced by an unexpected warmth. "Surprise," Ryan said, stepping in and barely waiting for an invitation. "I thought I'd swing by and see how you're doing. I got your message on social media about those workshops you're starting. I'm stoked for you." The dignity of her ambition swelled within her, but the shadow of her past began to breach the surface again. Ryan's enthusiasm ignited a memory of her own youthful dreams, but it also brought along the weight of unresolved debts and unmade choices. She cleared her throat, determined to keep the past at bay, at least for a moment. "Thanks, I appreciate it. It means a lot," she responded, forcing a smile. "What has been going on with you?" As they moved to the kitchen, she noticed the messy inbox on her phone, the email waiting for her attention. But here Ryan was, beaming with optimism, his casual naivety a refreshing contrast to the grave introspection she had been engaging in. The irony did not escape her. She had once aimed to be a guiding light for Ryan, yet now she felt like she was wandering in darkness. They settled at the small kitchen table cluttered with papers and half-finished plans, and Emily found herself animated by Ryan's unfiltered excitement. He began sharing anecdotes from his college life, the friendships he was forming, and the challenges he faced. Each tale painted a vivid picture of aspirations and failures that resonated with Emily in ways she hadn't anticipated. "You know, I think I'm discovering my path, too," Ryan ventured, looking serious for a moment. "I want to focus on writing and storytelling. It feels right, like it's what I'm meant to do." Emily felt a pang of envy. Could she have been more transparent about her own dreams had she not hidden her past? The idea made her inexplicably defensive. "Are you sure? I mean, writing it's not impractical," he interjected, eyes lit with conviction. "You always say knowing how to manage your finances is important, but isn't storytelling just as crucial? We're all looking for connection, right? That's how we grow." The weight of his words struck Emily, forcing her to confront the truth that she had been dodging. Her need to own her past was direct, an imperative shaping not just her but those around her. The conversations she had long avoided now interconnected with Ryan's youthful insight, blossoming into a newfound clarity. "You're right," she conceded, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "But it's hard to break free from what we think we are supposed to do." Ryan leaned closer, sincere determination shining from his eyes, as if he sensed her internal struggle. "You're not just what you did, Em. You're who you choose to be today, tomorrow, always." As that moment spiraled into a more profound discussion about identity, choices, and the fluid nature of self-discovery, the ringing of her phone interrupted them. The screen lit up with the email sender's name, time suspended. Her decisions appeared before her like twin paths diverging in a dense forest. Would she engage with this conversation that could unearth buried truths? Could that dialogue with the past serve as a catalyst for growth? Emily felt the urgency swell within her chest. She glanced at her brother, who seemed entirely unaware of the crossroads unfolding before her. Together, they resumed their conversation, but the internal debate raged on. What one truth was she willing to confront now before the next inevitable call? As she reached for her phone, a chapter of her life awaited its turning point, brimming with uncertainty and the promise of revelation. Emily sat poised at her table, the remnants of her morning routine lingering as she gathered her thoughts, the cacophony of voices both internal and external vying for attention. No longer merely a student or a daughter burdened by hidden secrets, she became something greater, a woman ready to define her own narrative. Her impending confrontation with her brother, Ryan, had birthed clarity, a revelation that propelling herself forward required not only hard-fought independence, but also an acceptance of the past intertwined with her identity. "Em, are you okay?" Ryan's voice pulled her from the depths of her introspection, a subtle reminder of the venture into the future that awaited her. "Yeah, just thinking," Emily replied, forcing a smile but feeling the weight of her ambitions and the challenge they posed. Her journey would not only impact her life but the lives of those she sought to empower through the financial literacy workshops. As she cast a glance toward the clutter of her plans, determination blossomed within her. I'm starting to see how important it is to embrace who I am past, present, and future. The words felt liberating, a reclamation of power she had almost allowed to slip through her fingers. Ryan's eyes sparkled with encouragement, a reflection of the hope she sought to nourish. Absolutely. Your story, the struggles, they resonate. People will connect to that. With each exchange, the conceptual divide between her fear and her ambitions began to close. Emily felt a rush of confidence surge within her, as if a stubborn vine encasing a blossoming flower had finally split. It was time to take responsibility not just for her plans but for her past. Actually, I'd like to talk more about my workshops, she ventured, her voice steady as she began to outline her vision. Each sentence formed a brick that solidified her intentions. The sharing of knowledge around financial literacy would provide direction for others and, in truth, herself. I want to make them personal, integrating our stories and experiences. It strengthens the message. The concept ignited Ryan's enthusiasm. Exactly. Real stories stick the kind of emotional connection you dreamt of. You have this wealth of experience, it's your chance to own it and guide others. Rival thoughts of caution flickered in Emily's mind, reminders of the hidden email still awaiting her attention, but as they continued to flesh out ideas, Emily realized that the forthcoming confrontation with her past needed to occur, not to disrupt but to enrich her trajectory. She could meld the realities of her family history with the aspirations for her future. The acknowledgement of both sides illuminated a potential she'd never seen before, one where vulnerability could forge authentic connections. With renewed vigor, Emily proposed their first workshop theme, Building Blocks, Your Financial Identity. The concept was both timely and profoundly personal, given her current internal journey. It'll be about understanding how our past influences our financial personas. Everyone has a story influencing their choices, it's time we bring that to light. Ryan nodded vigorously. That sounds incredible. People will really resonate with that. Boosted by his enthusiasm, Emily felt the shackles of fears slowly unravel, replaced by purpose. Engaging with her brother about their shared history, she sensed a resolve to tackle the buried fragments of her past, the debts she owed, the relationships lived, and those left behind. She wanted to be authentic not just for herself but as an inspiration nurturing others in their own struggles. As the sun began to set on a day filled with growth and realizations, Emily took a leap of faith. I think it's time for me to face everything hidden in that email and turn it into something powerful. Do you want to talk to me about it? Ryan asked gently, his eyes mirroring both sympathy and determination. With a grateful smile, Emily shook her head. Not yet, but I will once I confront my past. I can't let secrets dictate my future anymore. She took a deep breath and gripped the edges of her table, where documentation of their shared dreams and aspirations lay scattered. Those pages now felt like the map of her future, crafted with not just her ambitions but also the acceptance of all she had been and could be. Later that evening, the familiar pulse of anxiety thrummed within her as she sat beside a quiet window, the weight of her choices aligning. With a determined heart, she drummed her fingers on the keyboard, finally deciding she wouldn't shy away any longer. The clicking of keys filled the room as she formally responded to the sender of that ominous email, her fingers poised and resolute. This singular act marked the beginning of her transformative journey, a catharsis that would not only end her struggles, but initiate her role as a beacon for others. With each word typed, she drew closer to an undaunted freedom, empowered in her truths and emboldened against past shadows. The screen illuminated the path forward, revealing an undeniable resolve. She had emerged from turmoil fortified, anchored in her own strength and ready to embrace the future, not just for herself but for those she intended to uplift. As she sent the email, a sense of closure felt like a weight being lifted. Emily understood now that she was not merely stepping forward, she was leaping into a new life where her narrative carried the strengths of hard-earned knowledge, defined by resilience and growth. The journey ahead was filled with promise, a promise ready to flourish in the light of her realized identity. Every break in the past offered clarity for the future, each acknowledgement of the struggles lending authenticity to her emergence from those shadows. The moment had arrived to embrace each part of who she was: a daughter, an aspiring leader, and a determined woman ready to conquer her fears. now was her time, and now is the time for you to step into action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these transformative tales. Comment below your reactions and theories about this riveting conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring journey. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.